Hi, welcome to another edition of Engineering with LEGO Bricks and Robolab. I'm Eric Wong, and I'll be your host. Okay, here's a quick tutorial on some hints and tips to make your life in Robolab a little bit easier. Now I will note that we're using Robolab 2.9, the new version which has NXT support for the first time. So you'll see some icons in here that relate to NXT. We're going to ignore those, but you'll see them in there. Okay, so first thing on the agenda that I want to go through is minimizing the number of modifiers. Now here's a simple program that drives forward for 1 second, drives backward for 1 second, and stops. You notice that some of these icons are used over and over and over, and really the way we should be doing it, we shouldn't be saying A each and every single time. We should be going in and wiring all these things together, because really we're controlling the same motor every single time. So if I wanted to do motor A, and the design intent is to use motor A for all three of these icons, we should just wire them all together. So if we want to change this to motor B, we only have to change it one place, and it changes everywhere in our program. And so if you have a big program, that can save a lot of headaches, because if you forget to change a modifier one place, obviously your program isn't going to work quite right. So same with this speed icon, this power control will this power level, we'll go ahead and change that one also. So now we have 2 modifiers only instead of the 5 we started with. And so that's a good habit to get into in terms of minimizing the number of modifiers. So that's one tip. Second tip I'm going to show you, which many people already know, is the replace. So if I actually want to change this from 1 second, for example, to 2 seconds, I can go and say replace this, and replace, and here you can see a bunch of NXT icons. I can replace this to say 2 seconds. I could replace this one, again right-clicking, replace. I could replace this, for example, to do some fraction of a second. And so that's a replacing command, which allows you to replace icons very quickly, and everything stays wired together, which is kind of nice. In fact, if all these modifiers are all wired, the modifiers will even stay that way. So if I change the direction of this guy, for example, the modifiers stay wired. Undo that, Control Z, undo. Okay, so that's replacing. That's a very nice, fast way of making changes. So if your motor's going the wrong direction or the time isn't quite right. Inserting. So another way you can do this if I actually want to insert something. So one debugging technique I like to use is playing notes at various places in the program, so I can figure out where it is in the program. So sometimes I'm wondering if the loop is executing correctly or not, and I'm trying to find if it's there. I can click on a wire and go to insert, and here I'll insert just a music note, say D for example, and you can see this inserted and it's wired correctly, which is kind of nice. So I can insert information or insert code into my program without having to rewire things, which is another useful time-saving tip. So, and finally, there actually is creating. It's the last thing on this item number 2 in the agenda. And so this wait for 1/100th of a second, for example, by default has 1 second. Now I can go in and pull in a constant and wire it in. But if I want to save myself a little bit of time, it works on a lot of icons, not all of them. But I can say right-click on the terminal. So I got to get my wire terminal right over the terminal, so I can see where it's supposed to be over the modifier terminal. A little blue wire sticking out there. I say right-click and say create. I can create a constant, and there's that 100, which is the default. So now I can go in here and say, for example, 75. And I'm ready to roll. So now I've actually created that constant. I didn't have to go to the modifiers palette and pull down a constant and wire it in. I just did create. So that's a nice little another time-saving tip you can do there. Mostly for constants. It doesn't work for ports and things like that unless you're a little more advanced and you understand how that works. Okay, so getting to the source, now you can actually go in and you can do things like, it's interesting, you can actually see what's inside. If you double-click on Robolab, it is basically open source. I can double-click on that. I get the front panel. I'll go ahead and show the block diagram for this guy. And hey, this wait for 2 seconds is a simpler icon, which is wait for time, and I've wired in 2 seconds. That's what's wired in there. Oh, that's kind of interesting. That makes sense in many ways. And you'll see that that is the case for most of the Robolab icons, is they're made from existing or other Robolab icons that you're familiar with. I'm not going to save that. We can go into the motor, for example. I can click on the motor. Again, open the block diagram, pull it down so you can see it, and you'll see that it's a combination of 3 other icons, which are actually on the Advanced Motor Control palette. Or Advanced Motor Control palette is the sets the power. So I'm setting the power. I'm not turning it on, not setting the direction. Just set the power of the motor. I set the direction to forward, and then I actually turn it on. So 3 separate steps. Set the power, set the direction, turn the motor on. Now, why is that interesting? Why you need to know that? Well, let's look at this program. This one turns the motor forward for 2 seconds, turns the motor backward for now 0.75 seconds, and turns it off. Well, here I'm wasting time, essentially, wasting code. I'm not being very efficient because the motor is already on, and I'm turning it on again. Remember, this is 3 steps. Set the power, set the direction, turn it on. I've set the power, set the direction, turned it on. The only thing I'm changing is the direction. So I actually went in here and replaced this, went down to my advanced output control, and went in here and replaces the direction to backwards. Now these modifiers get broken, which is okay, because I don't need to set the power level anymore. I need to rewire this guy. And now I've got a code which is quite a bit more efficient in a sense. So set the powers to 4, sets the direction to forward, turns it on. Wait 2 seconds, play D, change the direction. The power is already set at 4. The motor is already on, so I don't need to do those again. I don't need to repeat myself. And then wait for 0.75 seconds, turn it off. So I've saved myself 2 lines of code and made myself a little bit more efficient. So that's a tip on optimizing code for making your code execute faster. And if you write big programs where you're actually out of space in RCX, that'll save yourself some memory also.